I am a bicyclist, but I'm on a budget. When I started biking about 6 months ago, all I thought you needed to ride a bike was, well, a bike. And frankly, I didn't really care what kind of bike, as long as it had two good wheels that rolled, a seat to sit on, a handlebar to steer, and pedals that pedaled. I thought it was all good. And since I didn't have my own bike at the time, I got on my daughter's old hybrid bike that she never rides, and I hit the road. Actually, I had a lot of fun on that bike. I did my first 20K ride on it, then I did my first 30K and then 40K. But after a while, it started to hurt my hands and wrists, and so I realized I needed a bike that fit me better. And so I started to look online for a bike of my own. But when I started looking online for different bicycle options, I was shocked. Bikes were expensive. I used to play a lot of golf, and golf is expensive too, and so I figured I needed a new hobby that was not as expensive as golf, and I thought cycling would be it. But when I started looking at different bikes and the different stuff that you needed, I couldn't believe it. Honestly, when I'm riding on the Hangang bike trail, all I see sometimes are nothing but dollar signs and a lot of one figures. And it doesn't matter if it's a road bike, a mountain bike, a mini fold-up bike, or even an e-bike. Brands like Specialized, Giant, Trek, Cervelo, Pinarello, BMC, and Bianchi. Some of these, they may just as well be called BMW, Porsche, Ferrari, or even Lamborghini. I'm sure they're super light and ride smooth like butter, but it's all just too rich for me. I just wanted a decent bike that wouldn't hurt me or fall apart after 10 rides, so I settled on something called a Madison. Not the fanciest or flashiest or lightest or fastest, but it was good enough for me. I had budgeted right around $1,000 for the bike. It's the same as a new set of golf irons. But instead of getting new irons, I decided, I pass on that. I stick with the old Mizunos that I've been using for the past 10 years. And then I busted open my piggy bank, and then I asked my wife for a few more dollars to borrow from her, and then I got my new bike. But then I quickly learned the spending doesn't just stop there. I've already had to replace the front wheel because it got dented in a crash. I had to replace the seat because that also got damaged in the same crash. And I've had to replace both tires because the stock treads had already worn out after only about 3,000 kilometers. I put new Schwalbe tires on there, which were not cheap, but I figured some things were worth the investment. So overall, just in the bike alone, I've already had to put in about $1,200. Now, sadly, in my short time of biking, I've come to realize that some people can be quite snobby about their bikes, whether they know it or not. I've had some people comment to me, "Why'd you get a Madison? Why not a Giant for a few $100s more?" Well, frankly, that's a few $100s that I can't afford. Another time, someone else told me, you should upgrade your brakes from mechanical to hydraulic brakes. Frankly, that sounds great. But honestly, I really don't know the difference between hydraulic and mechanical brakes. All I know is that I was just happy to have disc brakes. I've always had rim brakes, but to have disc brakes, man, that was pretty cool for me. In the past 6 months, I've already done about 5,000 kilometers on my bike. This includes a cross-country trip I did from Incheon to Busan in November, just 3 months into my bicycling adventures. And I did that all by myself along with Stella. That's what I call my Madison. It's a Stellar 2.0 gravel bike, so I call her Stella. And that tells me that, my bike is good enough. But even after I got back from my trip and I had it serviced at the shop, the guy at the shop, he looked at me and he was like, "You did that on this? With this kind of gear set?" Now, I didn't quite know what he meant because I thought my gears were working fine. And I'm not sure if it was a jab at my bike or an admiration for my athleticism. I'll kind of take it as the latter. But once I started getting into cycling really seriously, I realized that there's a lot more than you need than just a bicycle. You know, you need a helmet, you need that. You need a water cage and a water bottle, you need pants and maybe a jersey. Actually, frankly, for a beginning cyclist like me, I think the jersey is a little bit more optional than it is mandatory, but you need the pants. You still need the pants. Actually, my butt told me this a few times a few months ago. So yeah, you need the pants. But then you also need lights. You need it on the back, and then sometimes on the front. You need lube for the chains, and you need degreaser to keep it all clean. You need a glove, and you need goggles, and if you wear glasses like me, you need to put prescriptions in your goggles as well. And you also need basic maintenance tools like a pump, a spare tube, and a multi-tool with different size hex wrenches. And also, as I got better in my rides, I wanted a bike computer. And then I wanted a cadence counter. I still want a heart rate monitor, but right now those are a little bit more expensive, so I'm not going to splurge just yet. But guess what? That all costs money, and potentially lots of it. It turned out bicycling was not necessarily cheaper than golf. And so, I decided I needed to go cheap. And I'm talking coupon cheap, AliExpress cheap. Not quite Temu cheap just yet. And I'll admit, I've made some bad purchases. When you buy cheap, you get what you pay for. Some of it was trash, but some of it has actually worked out pretty well. It's funny though, when I'm on the bike trail, I see people wearing jerseys and bibs and helmets that everything all put together. It probably costs more than my bike. I mean, where do they get the money? I guess it must be nice though. I see some people doing pack rides together, and I'm thinking all together in a group of 10. That must be at least $50,000 riding past me. Not that I'm keeping track. I hope I'm not sounding bitter here. Actually, I'm kind of just in awe. Perhaps even a little envious. I heard somewhere that one of the reasons people buy expensive riding kits is because you feel a sense of community. Whatever that's supposed to mean. I get it though. It's not anyone who can be part of the Tidy Tights Club. My wife says we all look silly in our biking outfits. I say we because frankly, I have also become accustomed to wearing tight tights on some of my rides. It's just that my tight tights are budget tight tights, under $50. The first time I put on a pair of bicycle pants, my wife told me that those were the ugliest things she'd ever seen. But what does she know, right? But then there's something I just don't get at all, and I'm talking about socks. Now, shoes are different. I get why you need bicycling specific shoes, although, even my shoes are budget shoes. But as for socks, I just don't get why people buy bicycle specific socks, because they're really expensive. I mean, ridiculously expensive, like $90 a pair expensive. I mean, someone please explain this one to me, all right? I mean, I get my socks online in a bundle. It's like $10 for a bundle of 8. And I kind of think that my socks, they do what they're supposed to do. They keep my feet warm and they help me fit into my shoes well, and they do what socks are meant to do. At the end of the day, I still know biking will have me spending more money. I find myself perusing secondhand sites to see if I can find a decent carbon fiber road bike that looks like it's in fairly good condition. I guess I still feel the need for speed. And I can't help but look at, flashy looking helmets. I used to think that all helmets looked all the same, but I have been indoctrinated into the world of how helmets can look trendy. Not that anyone else who is a non-biker would know the difference, but we know, right? But ultimately, I also know that none of that matters. The only thing you ever really need to ride a bike is, well, a bike. And when I'm on my bike, even if it's a budget bike, and I got the wind blowing in my face and speed beneath my wheels, it's nothing but bliss. So till next time, let's just get on our bikes and let's just enjoy the ride. Let's go.